Good morning, everyone. It's Mike Andes here with Landscape Business Course. Today we are going to be having another Wednesday midweek motivation meeting. These meetings we have usually 5 to 10 people at them, and they're just optional meetings at the local Bellingham shop. We do them Monday mornings about 20-30 minutes before everyone else shows up for work. And this meeting we talk about money, and we talk about specifically about having wealth, becoming rich, and why that can be actually used for a positive thing. And a lot of times it's looked at as a negative thing, and people with money are looked down on, but using your money to be able to help others and really just trying to get them to start thinking about creating surplus, not just because it's like to go buy a nice car or a nice house, but like using their surplus to help others is like the most rewarding thing ever. So I just want to point them in that direction and just trying to get them to think like, not just in terms of like, how much money do I need to become comfortable or be happy, but like, what about making more than that, and so I can go give to other people who are in need. And so we talked a little bit about that. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope it kind of motivates you to maybe have some sort of a meeting like this with your own team. It changes the culture. Not everyone's going to buy in. Not everyone's going to want to even be at a type of meeting like this. That's optional, but it changes the dynamic of your team culture when you start talking about their personal finances and their future and their careers, instead of just always about the business and how they're going to make you more money. They need to work better for you, and like how to improve the customer service for you. Like, start thinking about them, their future, their careers, and I promise down the road, long term, it'll pay big dividends. So, hope you enjoy it. Here we go. All right, welcome. Let's talk about some money. Yeah. So I didn't really know what I was going to talk about until like 2 minutes ago. For some reason when I drive by those soccer fields, man, just like I get inspiration. So we'll talk about some health stuff in a second. But before that, I want to talk about something that I don't ever talk about. I might make a podcast about it. We'll see. And that is like, if I made a podcast, the title, for the sake of clickbait, would be, does God want you to get rich? But basically it's just the premise, like the idea of like why do you make money, and like the idea of, for me, why I want to make money, right? And so the reason I would title that is because like obviously the Bible says like the love of money is the root of all evil, right? And so for me, like, I don't know, like, me personally, I don't really care about money. I don't spend a lot of money, so I don't really need it. I live really, really simply, but I really enjoy having money to be able to do things, whether it be businesses, give it to people. Like, when you see a need, you want to help someone, it's not like, oh, like, if I want to do something, I can do it. And that's what, like, my money means so much to me. Like, I remember being younger and, like, I wanted to help somebody, or I saw someone in need, and I was like, oh, I want to do something for them. And just not having the means, like, you just can't do it. And the nice thing about having money and not having to spend it on yourself is you can give it away, and you can do good with it. And you see a need, like, hey, I can do that, and never having that feeling of like, oh, like there's a need, I can't fill it, and like I guess we're just gonna have to live with it, And so I don't know. It's an interesting concept, something I don't know. It's not really popular, but I think it's a mindset that gets you into thinking like, how can I make more money so that I can do those other things? And I think it's what makes it so easy for me to even like on the podcast to ask people to like buy stuff, because like I'm not trying to like take your money and go buy a yacht here. I'm trying to go do good stuff. And when you really believe that, you're okay. Like, hey, I'm trying to, like, that's why, like, when it comes to even like selling a lawn care job, if you actually believe it's the best thing for the customer to buy your product or service, you're not selling at that point. You're actually acting out of like a belief, and like you feel like you've done them you have a moral obligation and duty. There you go, 2 words mixed together. You have obligation and duty to sell them the job and get them to choose your product or service because you really do believe it's the best, right? And so when you start selling out of conviction and like actually an obligation to make sure they make a decision to get your product or service, that's when you begin to sell like crazy, because you actually believe in what you're doing, And so Yeah, and that's the difference I think between like a salesy person. They're selling because like, hey, I'm gonna make the money and I'm out of here. There's no like long-term belief in what they're doing in the product or service. Someone who like just exudes, like, they love real estate and they just know real estate and they know it's going to be the best thing for the investor. Like they can sell. Like there's no problem selling, right? And so when you know that what you're doing with your money is really a good thing, I think there's no like weirdness about like going and getting a bunch of it, because I know the money I'm making is going to go towards good things. And so yeah, I know the bad thing. I know some people don't use money for good things, you know, and that's where I tie it in with, hey, the selfish part. You're using your money on yourself. Someone with too much money and being selfish never ends good with money. It just never ends good. Usually for them, financially in the long term, you look at like Kanye West and all the rest of it, who has like lots of money but spend like lavishly, and now they're financially in ruins. But also just like anyone who makes so much money and then like is selfish with it in general, I just feel like that person decays in their head, you know, because they have such a surplus. They see other people with such little, and yet they keep it to themselves. Like I don't know, I think it just like messes up your brain. But anyways, that was my deep thought for the day. Any comments on that? Has something to say.
Can you tell? No, a couple things. So, like all the poor people had the kind of influence that we do here. If they had someone telling them, like, hey, like, there's more you can do, and you can actually go do it if you want to. And so, like, it comes down to desire. Like, I know someone like my mom. We have these conversations all the time. She just doesn't want to. She just doesn't. It's not like she feels like she can't, she just doesn't want to. And it's hard, it's a hard concept to understand from the outside. She just has no motivation to like fix her situation. Yeah. But just imagine like the incredible amount of poor people across the entire world, not just in America, but that don't have resources or access to, well, maybe they have access to it, but they just don't know. Yeah. Like they get their minimum wage paycheck, and after all their bills, maybe they have $100 left, and then they're so unhappy they just spend that $100 on like short-term gains, like stuff that's going to make them happy in the moment, instead of investing that in a book that's going to change your life. And it's like, if we had the ability to just like reach those people and tell them like, hey, like you have just as much ability as everyone else, I think that would go a long ways.
Yeah, two things. Like first of all, that's the reason why we do the podcast and the course and all that, right? That is the reason, right? Is try to do a small, tiny, like infinitesimal thing on like that objective, which is education around this concept, right? The secondary thing is like, I know it's your mom, but like make this point. For someone to say like, oh, like I don't have a lot of money, but like I'm happy. There's this weird thing like, man, maybe they're content. Like maybe that's just fine. But it's like, okay, let's say that same person pushes themselves now. Like they don't need it. They don't even want to go get more money, but they do it for somebody else. How unselfish is that? You know, like how selfish is it? Someone like, hey, I'm happy. Like I'm good. I don't need more money, so I'm just going to stop here. When they have so much untapped potential that could then therefore help other people. You know, that's where I'm like, that's selfish. Mm-hmm. You're like, hey, I'm good. Like I'm fine.
Well, just stemming off of that, it's essentially what you're saying. It's like I really do feel like humans, like good or bad, whatever kind of person you are, everyone has this like innate desire to do good by other people because it makes you feel good.
Right.
Like even if people don't acknowledge that, like I really feel like that's something that we all have in common. And like that's the greatest purpose of all. You know, it's like that feeling that you get from doing something for someone else. It like if you buy yourself something, you're like, cool, now I feel bad for spending this money on myself. But if you buy something for someone else and see the reaction, it's like it's priceless.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, like at the end of the day, I look at it like there's 7 billion, almost 8 billion, I think, people living in the world. Like, what am I going to do differently than any of these other people, right? Like, how am I being here? Like, everyone gets so wrapped up in their world, but like, let's just step back. You're one of them, billions and billions of people. Like, how are you going to actually like impact, right? Like, living for yourself is going to be like, you're going to die, and like the people closest to you will remember for like 24 seconds, and then you're done. Like, that's it. And even if you're the most famous person, you're only probably going to remember for like a day or two. Like, let's just be honest. No one really cares. not cares. It's just like you're just another person. Like people get wrapped up in like who they are and what their thoughts are and their emotions. It's like, look, let's just take this step. There's a lot of you here. Like we're just humans, but the impact that you can put on all these other people that they continue to live on and their lives are improved, not just from a money standpoint, but from like what you do in life, that's impactful, you know. So, yeah.
I think if I may add, because they say like the old like adage is that money doesn't change people, it amplifies what they already are. And I don't know if you guys have heard that before, but I think it's cool that we're here because I guess speaking for myself, I don't have per se a lot of money, but it's cool that we're in an environment where we get to kind of change ourselves and work on ourselves to get better. Like Nick said, like listen to the audiobooks and like come to work to get better. So that way, one day if I do have money, I've made a lot of the appropriate processes to make sure that I'm using it for good, right, and not just using it selfishly. So that was kind of cool. And then like because my dad, we've talked about this before, like my dad says like very jokingly, he's like, I'm so glad I didn't have money when I was young, because he's like, I would have screwed it up. Because he made a lot of life changes in like his 30s and 40s that really set him on a path to success. But in his 20s and 30s, he was very like reckless with just a lot of his lifestyle choices. And so he's very thankful he didn't have money, because he knows that his character traits at that point would have been amplified into something way worse. So just kind of cool to hear from your perspective and to know that like we have a step ahead of everyone else because we're young and having these conversations, not 30, 40 broke and lost all our money because we were selfish and stupid, right?
Yeah, like I think the thing to keep in mind, like you can literally turn generational poverty in 5 years. Like someone's been poor, their family's been poor, like their grandparents have been poor. Like you can turn that in 5 years. It does not take a long time, but making good decisions, working hard is not impossible. And so some people get really what's the word? Impatient. Like, oh, I want to do this now. I want to do this now. It's like, no. That's going to lead to short-term behavior. That's going to lead to like going and buying a penny stock. That's what it's going to do, right? Like, I got money. No. Make long-term decisions, and it only takes like 5 years. Like people in their 50s, they can go from nothing to making good money and being financially set for retirement in 5 years. You just gotta have a good idea, work hard towards it, and like you can. And so, for us to be so young and you're thinking, and when I say young, if someone's under 50 years old, like they have a lot of time, and it does not take a long time to really hit them. Like you can work your whole life getting skills, experience, just like working for free, and then 5 years where you hit something out of the park and you're set, and you can give, and you're set up for life, And so I think people forget that they get really impatient, like, oh, I gotta get a house now, and I gotta make investments. Like, no, get skill and experience, like that will set up itself, Yeah, Ben, do you have anything to say on that?
No, I like the topic. Yeah.
It's a tough thing to talk about, like in terms of like what people have gone through, because a lot of people do look at money as like, hey, I was given it, or I don't have it, or like some people they feel like people are just given money, right? Like, some people are, like trust fund baby, like just given money, right? But I really do believe that like, man, if you work hard for money and you have the ability to then give it out to people and be unselfish with it, like, man, it makes you feel good. So, and that's why like we know, I've talked about before, like living on little is so empowering because you don't have to make a lot to be able to give, and when you have that desire to give to other people, and that's the motivation for your money, and you go now try to make more money, you act on a completely different level. Because now you're not selling and you're not trying to make more money for yourself, and it comes across so much different, right? And literally, like I said, like it comes even lawn care, like landscape, when you're selling a landscape job. If you really believe that they're gonna make a poor decision by using somebody else, and like it is now your obligation to make sure they make a decision and a choice to buy your product, like it comes across so different than like, hey, I need to sell this person so I can make more money. Totally different, right? Like if I really believe that someone joining the franchise is going to be like the best thing for them, and there's no way that they're going to be able to do it independently as good as being a franchisee, there's just no way it comes across salesy, because I so believe in what we're doing, right? You don't have to sell, you don't have to push, you don't have to prod. I know what the value is, and I know that all I need to do by selling them, even if it come across salesy, is I have a moral obligation to make sure they make a correct decision right now in their life, and that is to use the product or service that I'm offering, right? And so when it comes to money, I have a moral obligation to make more money because I'm trying to help more people, right? Like, I'm just saying, if you have that mindset, like, I need to make more on people. I need to go get a raise. I gotta do a better job. I gotta go start a business because I have a moral obligation to help my family, to help my friends, to help those in need. And and when you have that, like, man, I had the privilege of going to Africa when I was 17 and then 18, and seeing real poverty. We don't talk about poverty here, like over there, and orphanages and clinics over there where, like, no running water, no electricity. You had 72 kids inside a 3-bedroom house, ranging from newborn to 18 years old, with one woman schooling, feeding, and clothing all of them. Like, we haven't got a shadow of what that is over here. And so when you take that and you'd be like, okay, well, what do I need to survive? That's basically what I got. I don't need very much. And that's why you're able to be like, okay, I can live in a 6x6 little room. I'm fine. We're good. And be really happy. And whatever I can make, I can give to them. I can give to other people I feel like are in need. And you can operate on a completely different level than anyone else around here is operating in. When you take your baseline of, like, what I need to be happy, and it's like, oh, like, there's people down here and they're just thrilled out of their mind. You got orphans that were abused, that were not wanted by their parents, thrown into fires, burnt all over their face, completely deformed, and they're just thrilled because you gave them bubbles. And you take that, and then you look at the standard person around here, and it's like, oh, well, if I'm not getting Social Security, and I don't have this given to me, and I don't have this bigger house, and I don't have this nicer car, and it's like, whoa. If I can stay happy down here, and I can reduce all the needs of my life and cost expectations down, gives you a lot of freedom, man. And just realizing that there's no happiness in having more stuff. It's just not. And so seeing that when I was 18, like, that was probably what kind of rewired a lot of my expectations of what we're kind of trained in North America. Because I'd gone through the whole education system. It's like consumption. It's like go into debt. It's like learn and just go into debt. We'll figure it out later, right? That's the consumption. And then, like, hey, and if, by the way, if you're really poor, we'll just give you money to go to school. We'll give you, like, hey, just consume. Either go into debt or we're gonna give you money to go. Just go. And that's the mindset. And then going to Africa is like rewired everything. Like, no. You do not need stuff to be happy. And so that's my 2 cents for the day. We'll talk about health next week.
So he can diss my slime.
Anyways, cool. Any questions about that? You really burning in your mind? No?
Great talk.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Have a good